Welcome to the Dad Show Podcast, a show all about impacting, empowering, inspiring, and uplifting information to become a better dad, husband, man, and mentor. And now, your host, Ryan Ladd.
Welcome to the Dad Show Podcast. How y'all doing? Today is part 3.
I think it was a combination of all of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I was so enamored with this idea of success that I'd created, and again, if you look at it through that lens, the success that we were having. And it was just like, I for the first time in my life, I'm so proud of myself and my accomplishments where I wasn't prior to that.
Yeah.
And I did all this without the first prayer, without, any of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just like, hey, I don't need this. This is the thing. It was almost like when I ridded my life of that teetering with faith, it was like all of a sudden the success started happening. I just became laser focused on this thing, right? And
see, that I don't want to take you off of where you're going.
Yeah.
But it's the craziest thing because Allie and I, whenever we first got together, first married, all that, I was a partier. I'd go out drinking, I'd go hang, and I was not, I was a Christian. Mm-hmm. I knew God, but I was not living my life for God.
Yeah.
We done the right thing. We got married, we moved in, we had our kids, got rededicated our lives, to Jesus and got baptized again. And then it's like all heck breaks loose. We find out about Kennedy's disease and now we got to travel to Cincinnati and and we're like, dude, our life was so much easier when we wasn't living our life.
That's the complete opposite. It's really the complete opposite. Yeah.
And, once you start finding Jesus and get closer, that's when the devil's like, okay, I got to pay attention to them and start trying to, scratch that scab.
And I think hindsight looking back, it was that early immaturity in my faith where I almost hit that point where I was completely bought in.
Yeah.
Right. And so this was the enemy putting blinders on me basically to be like, I'm not gonna, I don't believe that he has the power to not let you become, complete in your faith, but this was the distraction.
Yeah. He's the deceiver,
right. Yeah. So during this time, like I said, I got to that point where it was just like, if you want to go get it, that none of this whole idea of faith and a purpose and a calling and all that is just, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, then the wheels started falling off. So
just when you think you can handle it all by yourself.
Yeah, when you're like, I'm the man, I got this.
Yeah.
I don't need you. And then, like I said, I vividly remember having these conversations with Kaylee, and when the wheels started to fall off, man, the wheels fell off. It was just like the peak of success. And then you wake up one day and it's just under attack. And so again, hindsight, it's like, I felt like, God finally got to the point where he's like, I've had enough, if that's the direction you want to go, I'm going to essentially give you one more chance. And it's, I didn't want to have to get to this point, but to get my attention, it had to be dramatic because, like I said, the grind had become so extensive and the inability to accept no had become so intense that he had to really get my attention. The little things, the little bumps in the road were no longer cutting it.
Yeah.
During this time, to circle back to, and actually go back even previously, I've always, I've always been a partier as well, and really struggled with alcohol at a time. I struggled with depression, anxiety, all these things, all through the early days of college. Again, so much so in 2011, I tried to take my own life. Back 2011, I was on a ton of medications for mental health issues and things like that. I don't recall exactly, but I think it was anywhere from maybe 6-7 different medications.
Wow.
And I'd gotten a lot of them filled one night. I essentially became an alcoholic. I think I drank a whole bottle of vodka and I just turned them all up. This was living in Knoxville at the time. It was actually before I moved out to Cookeville. I was living with my cousin and she came back to the house and actually found me there. And then, obviously ended up going to the emergency room, and that was a whole big thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was suicidal probably throughout pretty much all of my early 20s. Again, just in this, like, just lost, really. I mean, that's really the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I knew what I needed to be doing. I grew up in church. I knew the word. I knew who Jesus was. I knew, all those things, but I never really wanted to accept it,
Yeah.
And that's where I go back to, like, as things got difficult, I feel like I really just used it. I was using it like I used everything else, whether it was drugs or alcohol or girls or whatever it might be. And, that, again, took me through. And so, again, it goes back to, like, when I started to come out of that and I graduated college and I found Kaylee and then found success and all these things, you can kind of see naturally how I reached this point of, like, hey, when I decided one day, because when I came off the medication, it wasn't the way it should have been done. I just finally had gotten to the point where I woke up and I'm done doing this.
Yeah.
And I just quit.
Yeah.
I uprooted from Knoxville. Again, wasn't doing good in college, and that's how I ended up in Cookeville. When I moved out to Cookeville, I moved out there knowing no one, like literally zero people. My brother was out there and my sister-in-law. And I just moved out there and I said, I got to reset and start over. And so from leaving and going out there to then, fast forward 2016, 2017, and having just felt like, hey, I did this,
Yeah.
And so again, that's where a lot of that came to be. But again, go back where I say, like, the wheels fell off. I mean, they fell off.
Before we continue that, though, I kind of I don't want to just skip over what we just talked about, because
I probably should have started with all that.
No.
I'm a little scattered all over the place, but
you're good. And we're going to, I don't know how many minutes into this podcast, people that are listening, we're going to chase some rabbits down this.
Okay,
and I promise you, we may not answer questions. And this may end up being a 3-hour podcast. I don't know. We'll break it up.
We may end up having to do it again and put it into a sessioning order.
No, we're good. We're good. We'll do all that in the post. But so there's a ton of people that, wrestle with depression, that wrestle with anxiety, with stress, and, just the everyday pressures of life, man. And so you going to the point of wanting to take your own life, man. I don't want to skip over that.
Yeah.
So, like, help the people that are listening. Obviously you got to that worst part and point in your life that you're like, this is not where I want to be.
Right.
Whether I go to heaven or hell, I just want to get out of this world.
Yes.
And so, I'm a firefighter EMT. I've ran a lot of those calls. I've seen a lot of those people. And so some of them didn't make it out.
Right.
But you did.
Mm-hmm.
And before we continue on, going back to where you got to Cookeville, how and what changed your mind? Was it the time that you're like, oh my gosh, I almost really killed myself?
Yeah.
Or was there something else that brought you out of this to make you have the drive and, that you want to go?
Yeah. So I guess I should go back and really talk about where, I guess, a lot of the anxiety and things stem from. So I've, like I said, shared this before in a smaller setting, but I was sexually assaulted when I was younger, and that stayed with me for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so early on, just trying to, work through a lot of that and not knowing how, really, I had kept this from my parents for well into my, I think, 20s, and so there was just a lot of anxiety in life in general, because of that.
Yeah.
And,
that just kept piling on top because you were harboring it.
Yeah. It just kept piling on, as I didn't know how to deal with it. And, you just get to a point where like I think you hit it spot on when you say, like, if you can imagine getting to a state where you don't care, heaven, hell, it doesn't matter. You just want the anxiety to stop.
Yeah.
It's so overwhelming. And I remember getting there multiple times, And so when I started really struggling, like with alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be, like any typical case, like that was just a momentary fix to just numb everything else, just to distract, just to get out of your own way, to get out of your own head. To, it's really hard to be anxious when you're so drunk you can't even remember being anxious. So,
but let's hit on that.
Yeah.
So the people that are out there that are trying to find that, it comes back. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can get drunk, you can get high, you can pass out and everything else. But when you wake up, I mean, and that's a continuous cycle that
100%.
Needs to be broken because it's not going to go away.
It's not going to go away. And it's since been described to me as any other illness. Like if you completely teetotally snap your ankle in half, right? And you just numb everything, or you don't walk on it, whatever the workaround might be, at the end of the day, your ankle is still snapped in half. Like you're going to have to eventually address it and fix it. And it was the same thing, with everything that I was going through mentally is like I just did everything I could to distract it. But
thank you for coming to watch part 3 and come tomorrow to watch part 4. Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.